Boker Tov, today's Daf is Daf Nun Beis and Yevmot learn for a full Shleim 4. Yosef is written Chaim Yichal Lozer Ben Reuma from the top of the page. Hi Gerach Get. The Gemara is going on this question. Kate said also Maimer. The Mishnah said from Lewis Zain Gerach Get and Maimer, and then it says Kate said also. That's not really explaining. Kate said also Maimer B'Vimto is not explaining Gerach Get. Hi Gerach Get. Who is that really Gerach Get? That's not the case of Gerach Get. I'm review the Hachakama. Like we explained yesterday, the Brisa and the Aleph and Aleph, they explain Tan Rabbanim. We said of that case that and Gerach Get. If you had two Yevamos that fell before one Yavam, number one and number two fell from Reuven to Shimon, and he gave a get to each one. And Leal says that you give get to the first one, and also B'Krova said because the second one is totally meaningless. And the Rabbanim said both getting have an effect, and he can't marry either one. And as he's also to all their relatives, they both have an effect, etc. So that was the explanation of get acher get. That's really Kedama, like we said in the Brisa. The Brisa could have really, been brought at the beginning of the Gemara, but we first brought that. Then the Mishnah when the Mishnah says Ketzad is going on a different thing. Again, I'm even like we said in the Brisa. Yavam echav yomachas. What's the case of one Yavam and one Yavama Ketzad hatrasan? How once he starts with the first Yavama, and let's say there's just Shimon and Leah. Well, how does he matter her? Asaba maimer b'yavimto. If he did maimer to her, again, the way to do it is either give her the proper way is to give her chalitza if he wants to dismiss her and to marry her if he wants to marry her. But if he's ed maimer and then he gave her a gift, also like get strichim and chalitza. And as we went on to explain the various cases in the Mishnah, we said. We want to explain the different cases. So he said in the next case was Asamaimer Ball. If he did Maimer and he gave Bia, raising mitzvahs, that's mitzvahs. The proper way to do things, the proper way to perform the mitzvah is to first give her kedushin, which is Maimer D'Rabbanan on a Yavama, and then give her Bia. So it says the Mishnah said Asa Maimer Ball Harezik Mitzvasa. So is that a proof to Rav Huna? In other words, Rav Huna is really saying the same thing in the Mishnah. It's not necessarily the case. Gemara could have asked, what does Rav Huna have to say if that's shot in the Mishnah? That Ema Afsuka Mitzvasa. No, it could be that this is also a mitzvah to do it. Meaning the Torah says you consummate the marriage, have Bia with her. In the case of a Yavam, Shimon has Bia with Leah. That's what the Torah says to do. But the rabbi said, if you want to do Maimer first, do a Kedusha proof, that's the proper way to do things. After the time of after Matan Torah, when let's say norms change differently, or even if you don't say that, just say the proper way to do it is the way you do kedushin on a regular woman. If a man marries a woman, he gives her kedushin first. So either do it the way the Torah said, you at least do it with bia directly, or if you want to do your kedushin first, you could do that also. It says pshita. Obviously, that would be good. What's the chiddush in that? You did maimer, then you did bia. That works. I'm saying keep number maros and maimer bimto parchim and zikasivama. Just the opposite. Maybe the way to do zika. I mean, the way it happens is Reuven dies. There's a bond between his wife Leah and Shimon, and the proper way to do things is only with bia, because then you consummate the marriage the way the Torah prescribes it. But in fact, we have a member that says if you did maimer, you know what? The zika disappears. And now and now it's like, you know what? You destroyed the zika that the Torah said is there by making maimer instead of having bia directly. You dismissed the zika, the bond, and now it's like Erison and Nesua. Now you're talking a regular kedushin. Maybe that's the pshat. Ema lav mitzvah kavod. So maybe you're not doing mitzvah yibim anymore. Mitzvah yibim is when after Reuven dies, you had bia with Leah to continue his marriage, so to speak, to continue the marriage of the first one. That's the mitzvah. But if you perform maimer on her, did kedushin on her, maybe you've dismissed, you've destroyed the zika, and now you're not doing a mitzvah. You're not doing mitzvah yibim anymore. I'm allowed mitzvah ka'avid. And if you're not doing a mitzvah, you're not doing the mitzvah yibim. You're marrying a woman, but you're not doing the mitzvah yibim. Yes, the Torah was matzarit without children, but maybe you're not doing the mitzvah. Kamashma, you are doing the mitzvah. So the point is that whether you marry her directly, whether you consummate the marriage directly without performing kedushin first, or whether you do it kedushin first, even if you do the kedushin first, it's still considered a mitzvah of yibum. Gufam Rav Huna. What did Rav Huna actually say? Rav Huna held that, and as our Mishnah could be saying that If he did that, that's the mitzvah to do it. It's also the mitzvah. The mitzvah is if you married her directly, or if you did kedushin first, like a mimer, that's also okay. Rav Huna said the mitzvah you must do kedushin first and then do bia, meaning you do mimer and then do the bia. Involve also mimer, kana. If you did ball and then you did mimer, you acquired it. Involve also mimer pshita. As soon as you were ball her, as soon as you had bia, the kind of a bia. Alaim involve below mimer also kana. He says the proper thing. Rav Huna says where the Mishnah we wouldn't say that. In the Mishnah you could say either way, your choice. Either do bia directly or do bia after mimer. Rav Huna says the preferable thing is to do mimer first and then bia. If you did it without, you're also kana. Aiva Tanya Loka. We learn you get malchus if you do that. How could that be the mitzvah if a brisa says you get malchus? Presume if you get malchus, that's a punishment that the Torah gave. And if that's the case, how can you consider that a mitzvah? That's only malchus rabbanan. It's only malchus rabbanan. The rabbanan chastised him by giving when the rabbanan said certain things shouldn't be done. They gave their own malchus. It's not the 39 malchus in the Torah. It's malchus matters rabbanan. The rabbanan whipped him in some way. Why do we have that? The rabbi said certain things are considered immoral. The Rav gave malchus to rabbanan manda makadosh b'bia. The Mishnah says, how do you makadosh an isha kesef shtar or bia? Right? Kesef bia. We lemaisa always do it with kesef, meaning a ring, kesef or shava kesef. But technically, you can makadosh bia. But he says that's not the right way to do things. It's considered immoral. Manda makadosh b'bia. He gave malchus for that. Manda makadosh b'shuk. If you're makadosh isha in the street, without, you have to get a proper wedding hall. If you do it in the shuk, it's not proper. It's not proper, it's considered like you're just acting like without the proper authorities. Shuk Rash is afilu bekaspa. The minig zilzu preaches it's considered licentious, considered immoral to mekadosh stam somebody in the street like a goy. If you get mekadosh without prior arrangements, just that could lead to trouble. Make the arrangements prior, have a proper tanoim or erusin, and get to know one another first, and consent and work out all the deals, right? He also gave malchus for a person's mavatal a get. That could cause a problem. A person sends a get to a woman with a shliach, and then he's mavatal it. She receives the get and may not know that he was mavatal the get. She's still married to him, and she might marry somebody else. So he gave malchus for people who did that. A person who announced that his get was not really done intentionally, was forced or whatever, that he didn't really sanction it. And it also leads to problems. A person who belittles, degrades a shliach of the rabbis. That's also considered hefker. The misvav galoshen chutzpah shemei is part of a hatris and shliach bezin. Person who starts up with a shliach bezin. He gave malchus for all those things. A person who was put under the ban of the rabbis for 30 days will also be din of a tavla. He didn't come to dispute it in court. In other words, he just let it ride. If they put you in chayrim, you should go contest it and see what you need to correct the situation. So all or on a son-in-law who lives in his mother's house, that all those cases, because that could lead to trouble. He lives in his mother's house, mother-in-law's house. It may lead to sexual immorality. So in all these cases, he gave malchus for people who did these things. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? The door only if you live there, ain't the chalaf low, even if you just stopped there overnight. There was one person who stopped at his mother-in-law's house. Benagday, Rav Sheshes gave him malchus just for that. Who made him havidayim mechamase? There they were considered under suspicion. In other words, that was different because in that particular case, they were suspected of doing something wrong, and therefore, since they were under suspicion, even if he just passed by, he shouldn't have stopped by there at all. But normally, it's only for people who lived in his mother-in-law's house for a period of time. Now, Radoi disagrees and said Rav didn't give malchus to Rabban on all those cases. Only if it's makadosh b'bia ubelow shidduchim without proper arrangements. Some say some said even if he's makadosh b'bia, even it sounds like the Rav only gave malchus if he's makadosh b'bia and without prior arrangements. So it's like he just it was just casual and it wasn't planned. Some say afilu b'shluch, even if it was planned, nami it's still also to do also he forbade being mekadosh a woman with bia because it's considered immoral. It's not the right way to do things. Tan rabbanon, katzed maimer. Well, how do you do maimer? So really, it's kedushin rabbanon. So it's like kedushin. Nothing like kesef shakes. You give her money or value of money like a ring. Ooh, right. So that's what the Mishnah says in kedushin. That's how you do it. Uvishtar katzed. So what do we mean v'shtar katzed? V'shtar katzed kramen. If this is kedushin, same thing should be the way kedushin works. V'shtar. Like we say, kramen kasav niroches. If you write it on a piece of paper or on a shard, even though it's not worth anything, because you're not being mekadosh by giving her money, you're being mekadosh by what's written in the shtar. So by it's written in the shtar, that's what you do. You don't have to. You're not giving her anything. You're giving her the words that are written on the shtar. So what's your question about? How do you do? Once you understand that Maimer is like kedushin rabbanan, so the same way you do kedushin normally. If it's with money, you give her money or value of money like a ring. And the shtar would be the same way. So if you're mekadosh, what's that question? Some say that his question was that you didn't say, do you have to say haret mukudeshesly? But either way, he says from that brisa we see it would be the same thing. No, we're not talking about how you're mekadosh or how the maimer works. Maimer drabanan that you do on a yavama is like kedushin daraisa. So if it's money, you give her with money or shava kesef, and if it's a shtar, you write haret mukudeshesly. Well, here's a different question. We're talking about the ksuba. Shtar ksuba sivam katzed. How is the shtar of a ksuba of yavam written? How is the ksuba like any other ksuba? It's slightly different. Katzed kasavu ana ploni bar ploni. I Shimon, the son of Yaakov, kibelos yas plonis. I accept yivim to accept Leah Bas, whatever her name was, as my yavama. Alai lazum upanas. I'm going to support her. I'm going to sustain her with food. Karoi, like this is proper. However, her original ksuba, the ksuba should be responsible. That's $200 or $2 million, whatever he gave her. That should be from the first husband. Because why? My time, be less slave marishan. If there's no money, there was no estate. He lost everything, and that's why he's dead or whatever. He's dead now. The first brother Reuben's dead. He has no money. The Rabbanan said, okay, you should still give her a minimal ksuba. So you should think twice before divorcing her. Fine. But basically, his ksuba doesn't have to be paid out of his own assets, it's out of his Reuben, his brother's assets. Why? As Rashi explains here too, or it's in the Gemara. But what's the reason why? Because the Torah gave him this thing, right? Like Rashi explains, my time he didn't agree to this deal originally, right? He didn't say, I want to marry this woman and I'm going to give her ksuba, I'll give her $50 million in the ksuba or whatever it was. He didn't agree to that. His brother Reuben agreed to that. Now Reuben died with no children. All of a sudden Hashem said, you're supposed to marry this woman. But I didn't accept to take all that financial burden on myself. So that's why the ksuba comes from the first husband, from the first husband's estate, right? Now you might say he is also the Yoresh, right? Doesn't he take over all the estate anyway? Yes, he's the Yoresh, but the question is, he doesn't have the ability to spend all that money. That ksuba, pardon? No, but we learned before that the Yavam, whoever performs the Yibam of let's say there's several brothers, he gets all the money of Reuben. Reuben's Yerusha. He gets Reuben's Yerusha. So you understand? He gets Reuben's Yerusha. Even Reuben's Yerusha, we said that could be if Yaakov dies subsequently, his father dies subsequently, he gets that Yerusha too, possibly. So since he has the Yerusha, he has the money anyway. Yes, but the part of the Yerusha that's leaned for the ksuba, that stays lean for the ksuba. In other words, he's entitled to any extra money that Reuben had, but the part that from the ksuba that was meshubad to mortgage, so to speak, to the ksuba, that stays intact for the ksuba.
No matter how much it is.
Yeah, no matter how much it is. If he had that, if Reuben had the money in the estate, yeah, but he's using Reuben's assets for that. Abai Merabi asked the following question. Nothing like that. Okay, let's say a Yavam and Yavama. What are you supposed to do? As we said, either do Yibam or do Chalitza. But he gave her a get. Nothing like that. He gave her a get. So what did we learn before? If he gave her a get, once he gives her a get, he's not supposed to marry her anymore, right? That's it. You have to follow it up with Chalitza. Right? You can't marry her anymore. And because and also can't marry her relatives. What happens if he gives her a strange kind of a get? He says, you're divorced from me, but yet you're not allowed to marry anybody else. Right? What's the halacha? Get Yevamot Rabbanan. The rabbis.
No, we said to get with the tonight.
It's a get. No, it's not even a t'nai. Well, so there's a t'nai also. T'nai is a different case. But this is where he said, you're divorced from me and you're not allowed to marry anybody else. Now let's understand. If a regular person's married, two guys, a man is married to a woman, and he gives her that sort of a get. He gives her that sort of a get. Is that a good get? No. She can't marry anyone else. However, it's what we call reach get. If the husband was a Kohen, he can't stay with her anymore because he gave her a get. We'll see. He gave her a get. Now, it's not a good get. She can't marry anybody else. But if her current husband is a Kohen, he has to give her follow up with the proper get. He can't stay with her anymore. Okay. So what happens if a Yavam gave this get, kind of a get to a Yavama? Do you say, well, the rabbis made this? Torah, there's no such thing as a get when it comes to a Yavama. Just like there's no scheme as mimer. The Rabbanan said, you should first do a mimer. And the Rabbanan said, if you give her a get, you've displayed your intentions not to marry. You shouldn't marry her anymore, and you can't stay with her family, etc. You can't marry anybody in her family. So what happens if the Yavam gave this kind of get to the Yavama? You're divorced from me, to marry anybody else. Now, get Yavama, the Rabbanan, it's on the Rabbanan, and get the money. The rabbi said, well, if you're not supposed to give her a get, but if you gave her a get, okay, if it's a get that works by a normal marriage, then it works by Yavama. Get the lo mani b'eshish, also lo mani b'Yavama, and therefore this wouldn't have any effect, and it wouldn't have any effect at all. He could still marry her. She's still Yavama. He could still marry her. It wouldn't possible her on the brothers and on the posla halacha I get it because it's meaningless. That should be keeping Shabbat, keeping Shalabana Shavla, even it's meaningless. Or maybe say no. This get has an effect in this case that he shouldn't marry her relatives, he shouldn't marry her anymore, because if you say that it has an effect, people will think that it will have an effect in a regular case of a man and a wife. If it works here, it might work there too. So people will exchange. In other words, they'll mix this up with that case, or not a regular case of a wife, but rather, not in the case of a regular one. People wouldn't think that we know in the Gemara that that's not a regular get. But if you say that this is valid, people will think that if the Yavam gives a regular get, a regular kind of a get to a Yavama, it also has no effect. If you say that it has no effect here, people think, okay, the Torah says either give her chalitza or yibam. If you gave her a get, it doesn't do anything. That's what we're afraid of. And so he answered him, Rav answered him, yes, it is valid because it is valid here. If we say it's not valid, right? So people will think that what? In other words, if you say, do you say that it doesn't work here? Or do you say that no, that you should give it, this get does work here in this case? Because if you say that there's no difference between this get and if this get doesn't work here, it doesn't work, because it doesn't work, by a regular case, it shouldn't work over here too. People will think that people will think that, oh, this kind of a get doesn't work. A regular get doesn't work by Yavama either. A regular get doesn't work by Yavama. You're supposed to give her chalitza or yibum. Oh, you gave her a get, you can marry her anyway. It doesn't mean anything. That's what we're afraid of. So therefore we say that, you know what, this kind of a get does work over here by Yavama, because if you say it doesn't work, right? If you say it doesn't work, people will think, okay, a get doesn't work for a Yavama at all.
But if it works, then the whole concept of continuing the lineage of Ruvain is out the window because she's not allowed to marry anybody.
That's right, exactly right. But that's always the case. And give chalitza, also the lineage is gone, right? The whole concept of chalitza, or whenever you give if he does mimer, or if he marries her and divorces her 5 minutes later, also the lineage is gone. The basic idea is that we discussed it before, that the idea that the proper thing is he should marry her and have children, etc., name the kid after the deceased brother, but you're mekayim the mitzvah by one bia, even if you divorce her 5 minutes later. So in general, that's the general idea of yibum, that he should take the place of the brother. But you're mekayim the mitzvah even without that. If there's no children, if Shimon had no children with her afterwards, for whatever reason, it's also still Mekayim the mitzvah. So Chashin Damasu, let's finish. I'm like Chashin Damasu Lachlufa give. We're afraid. In other words, we say that it should have an effect. He should no longer marry her, and he can't marry her. His brothers can't marry her because we say if it doesn't, if it's like a regular get, people will think a regular get also you can give a get, a proper get to a Yavama, a Yavam to Yavama, and it also has no effect. So we say therefore it does. This is not a real get. So what are you saying? Whenever you give a get to a Yavam to a Yavama, it should have an effect. It should have an effect because otherwise you might think that a regular get has no effect. Hachanami the apostle, would you say a blank piece of paper also apostles her from marrying the other brothers and marrying him? A regular piece of paper doesn't do anything because even if a Kohen gives a piece of paper to his wife and says, and there's nothing written on the begetzu, and there's nothing written on the paper, it doesn't have any effect. But this kind of a get, where you say, I'm divorcing you, but you can't marry anybody else, has an effect because it passes him from a Kohen. If a woman is divorced from her isha with a yud there, isha from her husband, lo yikhu afilo niskasha ela isha. A Kohen shouldn't marry a woman who is divorced, even if she's only divorced from her husband and she's not moved to marry anybody else. That's what we dash afilo niskasha ela isha lo yikhu. Behind a reach a get. That's the what we call the smell of a get. It's like a somewhat of a get. Supposed to be the apostles of marrying Kuna. Yeah. Is your question answered?
Not really, because the question it said we say this get is okay because people will say that if you don't say this get was okay,
but
again that a regular get's not okay, but you could say the opposite.
Right, you could, but the point over here is remember that the fact that get works at all by Yavama is a chiddush itself. That's Rabbanan. You might say that you can't give. It's like if you give a get to a woman in the street, is she divorced from her husband? No, I'm not the one. Here too, the Yavam and the Yavam are not really married. There's no reason to say that a get there helps at all. It's all Rabbanan anyway. So the Rabban, what's the purpose? And they say if you gave her a get, you can't marry anymore. It's like lo yivna. You shouldn't marry her once you displayed a desire not to marry her. Can't marry her anymore. And neither can your brothers. That's all Rabbanan anyway. So it's however the Rabbanan were mataking it. And the Rabbanan said that if you give her a regular get, you can't marry her, but maybe a get like this is good enough that you shouldn't, you shouldn't marry again. But a get like this also, we're not sure. So we say, you know what? Maybe we say it does work because it does work. Does work in what sense? She still needs chalitza. And the point simply is that we apply the idea that the rabbi said, once you displayed this idea, you shouldn't marry her anymore. And whether if you gave her a good get or a weaker get, it is somewhat of a get. It works for a Kohen to passel him from his wife. So therefore, it works enough here. If we say this has no effect at all, people will say a regular get that you give her also has no effect. And the rabbi said, no, it does have an effect that you shouldn't marry him or his brothers anymore. The rabbi said, a man was engaged to his wife, not Yibmot here. A man's engaged to his wife. And he tells the scribe, he tells the sofer, write a get for my wife, like Shechsena Agarshena. When I marry her, I'm going to divorce her. And he puts in the get, Tosfos points out the problem with it. Tosfos says he puts in the date of the get is after the date of their marriage. They're getting married on June 1st. He says, I want you to write a get from June 15th, I'm divorcing my wife. What his reasons are, let's not, whatever his reasons are. He says, he tells the sofer, I'm engaged to her right now. I could divorce her right now, but I want to divorce her after the marriage. We have all the food prepared and everything. When I marry her, I go shena. Haray's a get. It's a good get. It's a good get, even though he's not married to her yet, but he's engaged to her. They should be able to gasha because he could divorce her right now. Since he could divorce her right now, because they're engaged. Arusa means that she's engaged with kedushin. So uli isha ba'alma ain't get, but a woman he's not married to. And he says, he's not even engaged to her. He says, listen, when I get engaged to her, I'm going to divorce. When I get engaged and married to her, I want to divorce her. It's not a get nation. He can't do it right now. So boy, Ramachama, based on that, Ramachama asks, what happens if he says that's his Yibama? He's not married. His brother just died. They finished the Shiv and the Shloshim. Now he's supposed to perform Yibam. He says, you know what? I'll perform the mitzvah, but as soon as I get married, I want to divorce her. Can you write the get now? We said in the case of the Arusa only because if he's engaged to her, he could divorce her now. Yes, if you have Arison and you want to decide not to, you can marry her right. You can give her a divorce. You need a divorce right now. like he could divorce her right now, and she's capable of getting a divorce. If he's not married to her at all, if he's not engaged or married, then he's not then he is not the oligarsha. But over here by the Yavama, it's partial because there is a zika there. The Yavintamau, even Dagida Bay, since she's bonded to him, Karusa Sadami, it's just like an Arusa, and therefore he could do such a get. He could tell the sofer, listen, when I marry her fully, I'm going to be divorced. I want to give her a get. Oh, Dilma, keep him to law of mimer, since he hasn't done mimer to her yet. He hasn't done mimer on the law. Maybe he can't. In other words, how strong is the zika? Take where that question stands.
It would depend on if you have the Yesik or Azik.
Oh, okay. So it could be. It depends. The Gemara doesn't say that though. Whether it depends on zika or not. There is a zika there. Even if you say ain't zika, it means that the zika is not strong. So maybe that's the question. Is zika not strong? Maybe you would say the Gemara. It's a very good question because the Gemara you would think the Gemara could say if you hold yay zika, then you could. If you hold ain't zika, not right. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara just says, is the zika enough to make it like a rusaso or not? That's a very good point. And we said that's what zika is. If you hold yay zika, that is like a rusaso. I think your question is very good. Oh, the mikil love of could be that Rav Meir Shapiro, even if you hold yay zika, maybe says since you didn't do mimer, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. That's the question taken. The Gemara stands. Now, when you write this woman, as soon as Reuben dies, she has a zika, right? If you hold yay zika, it's strong. If you hold ain zika, it's not strong. But there is a zika. There is a bond between them, right? That has to be dismissed either with chalitza or dismissed via bia by performing gibum. So he asks this question. Now that's the zika. Then he also did mimer, right? What's the right way to do it? As soon as he dies, there's a zika. Then the proper way to do it, we said, according to Rav Huna, and the Mishnah also said that that's an acceptable way to do it. Rav Huna said it's the right way to do it, is to do mimer first, and then. So after he did mimer, he has to have a get for sure, right? You need a get. So what happens if he wrote a get for the zika and not for the mimer? He says, I'm not giving you a get. He didn't say haret mukureshes. Haret mukureshes, l'chala mimeni and yumuter l'chala, the way a regular get is written. We understand that's a get. What happens if he writes the get only for one of the two aspects? He wrote the get l'zika below the mimer or the mimer below the zikaso. How does that work? Mimer ilizika is mimer in addition onto the zika. In other words, as soon as he dies, the Torah says there's a zika there. Now he made the mimer on top of that, and the mimer sits on the zika, and therefore karami. So if he says over here, I'm divorcing the mimer. I'm getting rid of the mimer. Here's a get for the mimer, or here's a get for the zika. So is he only divorcing her partially? In which case, that's not a get. You can't say I'm divorcing half of you or partially. It doesn't work that way. So is mimer in addition to the zika? Loss of lokum is meaningless. Odilma, they're two separate things. You divorce from mimer, das from zika. What's the nafmina? If you divorce her from the zika, that means that none of the brothers can marry her. The zika's gone, right? You're divorcing her, none of the brothers should marry her. If you're divorcing the mimer, only your mimer is gone, but the zika remains. Are they two separate things? Is the mimer, the zika stands on its own and the mimer stands on its own? Or is the mimer on top of the zika? And therefore, if the mimer is on top of the zika and you divorce from one of you, it's like divorcing half of her. It doesn't work. If you hold they're two separate things, they're two separate things. And Rashi says, if you divorce her from the mimer, the brothers can marry her because all you're doing is you're getting rid of the mimer, but the zika remains. And if you get rid of the zika, then you can't marry the brothers. Are they two separate things or not? Okay, that's what you could, because that's what he said. That's what he said. The whole concept is that it works through Rabbanan, right? Works through Rabbanan. And in the sense of what? She still needs chalitza. He's not 100% divorced either way, right? Because he needs chalitza as long as there wasn't the chalitza, if he didn't consummate the marriage and marry her. If you marry her, then all you need is a get, because now there's no more zika. But if he didn't get rid of the zika, there's still an obligation for chalitza. But if I'm giving you a get for the zika, okay, you can't marry any of the brothers anymore, not him and not the brothers, and you still need chalitza. But if he only gave a get for the mimer, and he said, I'm only divorcing from the mimer that I gave you, that's destroyed. That's destroyed. I'm getting rid of that. But the zika remains, then he could marry the other brothers. Oh, Dilma, there's a case we had this before. 3 brothers married to 3 women, not related. 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, Reuben dies. Left number 1. Now what happened? Levi, the third brother, did mimer on Leah. Did mimer on Leah. Okay. Then what happened? I'm sorry, not Levi, not the third brother. The second brother. Second brother did mimer on Leah. He's already married to another woman, to number two. One, two, we call Leah. I'm mixing it up. Leah with he's married. They're married to number 1, 2, and 3. The first brother dies. The second brother does mimer on her. Then he dies while there's mimer. So what happens to the third brother, Levi? Levi now has 2 women who fell to him, right? 2 women who fell to him. So they're partially tsaras because he was marmator. Okay. So it says over there that you give cholzos. Comes along, Rav and says over there, let's say he gave Shimon, the second brother, before he died, divorced her from the mimer. He gave a mimer to Leah, to number 1, right? Not I don't want to mix up Leah. Number 1, he gave mimer, and then he divorced her. So Rav and Nasan get lemamaro, putter tzarasa. The tzara, meaning Shimon's wife, is mutter to marry the third brother. Why? Because all he did was he gave the get for the mimer, but the zika remains. And the tzara is mutter. And Rashi says technically he can marry Leah too. He can marry number 1 also, but we don't do it because of Xera. We're afraid that he gave a get, if he would give a get before there was mimer at all, give a get to her, then nobody can marry her anymore, as we said before. So Rav doesn't get the mimer, but hutra tzarasa. So Rav says obviously if you get for the mimer, the other one could marry her. So you see that he's not giving a get for the mimer, is only for the mimer, not for the zika. And the other one could still marry her to tzarasa, meaning Shimon's original wife, number 2, could marry now Levi. So the answer is, hey, Rav Pshitla, Rav Taka says that the 2 separate things. Rav Chananya Meboile, my take. Rav Chananya had this question taken. And you could say the same thing by Rav Chamer before, Michael, on your question. Rav Chamer had this question. Maybe somebody else would say that if you hold Yesh Zika, right? If you hold Yesh Zika, then you could give a get like that. It's say, tell the scribe, after I marry her, I'm going to divorce her because I could give a get now, but you're not really giving a get to Raisa now. It's a get to Rabbanan because it's not right. It's not the same as a get to Raisa. So you could play with that either way. So that's his question. Is it separate, or does the mimer sit on top of the zika and they go together? And if you've divorced from one, you're not really divorcing her at all, or are they 2 separate things? So we said in the Mishnah, one man, one wife, Shimon and Leah. There's only one brother, one wife. If he gave her chalitza and then he did mimer, so what do we say? It has an effect, right? Chalitz v'asa mimer. What did the Mishnah say? Chalitz v'asa mimer, nasan get a ball, or chalitz v'asa mimer, ain't a chalitza go. Meaning, it's meaningless. If you gave her chalitza, he has one brother, Shimon, and he gave Leah, give her chalitza, Yibam, right? Give her chalitza, and then he did mimer to her. Does the mimer have an effect? The Mishnah said no, it's meaningless. Ain't a chalitza klum. That's the words of Rabbi Kiva, who holds Amar Ein Kedushin Tavsim B'Chai Lavan. Since he gave her chalitza, Kivin Shalabana Shuv Lo Yivna. That's it. There's a lav, and therefore Kedushin is not Tavsim. Chacham Yeshach Chalitza Klum. You could Rabbanan say it's only a lav. After you did a lav, according to Rabbanan, if you gave her chalitza and then you married her, it would be chal. You'd be over in a lav, but the Kedushin is chal. When we met some look, we say goes to Tani Reish. The Reish says nasan get. If you gave her first to get vasa mimer, tzricha get b'chalitza. You still need to get chalitza. V'ira b'kiva, even the other. Once you gave her get, mi mahani b'mimer. Does mimer have after get for time? Rabbi Kiva omer b'nayim lo so yet livimta. If you gave her get, shenesser lo, she's also forever. Shenemer lo yuchal bal v'yishna shilcha. Rashi, this is real. The pasuk is really speaking by Machzor Shasha B'Shenisah. We apply it to this case over here. Asher shilcha, that he sent her away. There's a case where you send her away, you can never marry her again. Asher shilcha, achar shiloach, you can't marry her ever again. So how can you say Mishnah goes like Rabbi Kiva? Mishnah says nasan get. Generation nasan get vasa mimer. You still need a get the chalitza. Why? If you give her a get, you never marry her anyway. Kedusha shem dichal. Amar Bashi, no get Yevamot is only drabanan. You give that to rabbanan. Across mach the bialma. It's only drabanan anyway. It's not a chalitza. Chalitza is the oraisa. If you gave her a chalitza, according to Rabbi Kiva, it's chayve lavin, and you're not allowed to marry her anymore, which is a lav, and a lav kedusha is not tofes. But if you gave her a get first, that's only drop on it anyway. And the pasuk about that you can't take her back anymore is only in a smachta sheshulchu. You never take her back. That's only in a smachta. It's not a real device. We see a brisa also. The Mishnah goes like if you give Amar Rebbe. Rebbe says, listen to this Rebbe. Our Mishnah's words are according to Rebbe Kiva She'elsa chalutza ke'erva. Chalutza, which is a lav, is like an erba. Kedusha is not chal. There is after chalitza. In other words, you give her chalitza. You're not supposed to marry her anymore. That's it. Chalitza, you're done. Everybody goes home. but he decides afterwards to marry her. If he does, kedushin chal, even though he's not supposed to, it's allowed. Ani omer, Rebbe says, Ani omer, the kedushin subsequent to the chalitza only works when he marries her to marry her. I'm giving L'Shem Mishas. Listen to this. After he finished the chalitza, that means the zik is gone. He says, I'm marrying you now for Yibum. I changed my mind. But isn't the Yibum gone? The zik is gone. So Rabbi says, but then it doesn't work anymore. In other words, Rabbi says, yes, I don't agree with Rabbi Kiva. I go like the Rabbana and the Kedushin Chala and Chai B'Lav. But if that's only if he's marrying her, but he's marrying her l'shem yibum, that doesn't work at all. That's Rabbi's opinion. The Rabbanan don't say that. Tanya Idach, another Rabbi says a cholotzi then double Rabbi Omer imkish l'shem yishes stricha heimenu get. That's Rabbi Shita. If you're mekadosh, you have to explain to get why, because Kedushin's chal on Chai B'Lavin and Kedushin's chal. If you did l'shem yishes, if you did l'shem yavamas, if you did l'shem yabmus or yavama, that doesn't work. And the zik is gone. He gave her chalitza already. Ain't stricha menega. You don't need to get because it doesn't work at all. It's not a marriage. It's a kedushay tos. It's a whole mistake. You gave her chalitza. Now you say, "Oh, I'm marrying. I want to do the ibam now." That doesn't work because you can't be mekadosh l'shem. That doesn't work. That's Rebbe Shita. Chum says no. That's not a mistake. Whatever the reason was, you're still mekadosh. You gave her a ring and you say her mekadeshesly, right? Ben shekitz l'shemishas, ben shekitz l'shemivamas, stricha menega. You still need to get. You still need to get because it's only Chai V'Lav and Kedushin's Chal. Rabbi Yosef, my time. What's Rebbe's reasoning why he says if you're Makadisher l'shem Yabmus after Chalitza doesn't work? Asua Koda b'nechsei ger. It's like a person digging in the assets of a ger who dies with no relatives, and you're digging in the assets. B'ksav shalom. His field, the ger's field, was right next to yours, and you're digging in there taking stuff, and you thought it's your field. You're not Kohen because you didn't have in mind to make an acquisition. Here too, you didn't have in mind to make a regular acquisition, like when you acquire a wife. Here you're thinking that, I'll just fulfill the yibum now after you did chalitza, which shouldn't work. How can you compare it to the case of Nechse Ger where you thought the Ger's stuff was yours because his field was right next to yours? There, you didn't have kavanah. There, you didn't have kavanah to acquire the Ger's nechasim. You thought that the Ger's nechasim was yours. It was the next field next to you. That's why it doesn't work. But over here, here you have kavanah to be kohen her, but you just did it the wrong way. This is the comparable. You thought it was another ger's. It wasn't that you thought it was yours. You're digging through this ger's, thinking then it was another ger's. It was somebody else's, but you had a kavanah to acquire. There you are, because you have a kavanah to acquire. So the Rabbanan are telling him, okay, you thought you were doing it with Shane Yabmus, but you still had kavanah to acquire her. So the Rabbanan are disagreeing with Rebbe. Elam Rabbiya. So that doesn't make sense to say that's the svara of Rebbe. Why Rebbe says that it doesn't work. It doesn't work because I had kavanah for yibum, and therefore it's a mistake. He said, I'm being kaddish you with the mimer of Yevamot, not the kedusha of Shum Yamas. I'm a kaddish you with mimer of Yevamot. Rebbe Savar mimer ilu yazika. We're going back to the original he said before. Mimer's on top of the zika. It's added to the zika. But asi chalitza after. Once the chalitza came and took away the zika, after the zika removed the zika. Therefore, you're not marrying her because there's no mimer Yevamot. Yevamot mimer is only if there's a zika, and because mimer sits on top of the zika, go together. If there's no zika, there can't be any mimer. That's why it doesn't work over here. Rabbanan Savi, yes, the zika is gone, but the mimer can still remain. Right? Since I originally could have said, if I'm Mekadosh, you should marry me with the mimer of Yevamot. It works not because of the zika. Not because of the zika. It works separately. Zika is one thing, mimer is something else. Hashnami mahani, you hear it also. Rabbi Omar, so that's one way to learn the machlokas, Rebbe and the Rabbanan. Rabbi says, no, I'm going to plead you the mahani. If you said mahani, everybody agrees with mahani. Everybody agrees that it works because there's two separate things. Zika is one thing and mimer is something else. Here he says, be mekadosh me with the zika Yevamot after he did chalitza. Rebbe Savar yesh zika. Oh, Michael, we're coming back to your idea, right? Yeah. Rebbe says yesh zika. If your yesh zika is strong, but if there's zika is strong. Chalitza took away the asa chalitza. After they took away the zika after zika. For Rabbanan Savar ain't zika. So if Rebbe says, listen, you're mekadosh with the zika Yevamot, the zika is not here anymore. So therefore, if you said mekadosh with the zika Yevamot, it doesn't work. Rabbanan Savar ain't zika. Zika is not strong, and that's not the issue over here. So zika doesn't make any difference anyway. Mikari ilom especially the zika Yevamot and milamani would help. Hashnami mahani. The zika is not strong. It's not something that the chalitza has to take away. Whatever the zika was before, zika there now. No, he says no. Everybody agrees And everybody says it doesn't help because yesh zika, and the chalitza took it away. That's Rav Shapir's opinion. That if everybody holds of yesh zika, and if he says zikas yavamin, and there's no more zika because the chalitza took it away, no problem. Everybody agrees it wouldn't work, even the rabbanim. Everybody says that if it was a good chalitza. Here we're speaking about the chalitza was done after a get. The machlokes between Rebbe and the rabbanim is where there was a first a get, then the chalitza is a psula, a weak chalitza. Marsa v'chalitza psula poteris. One says what? That the chalitza, so even if chalitza psula dismisses her, right? She's exempts her now from the whole parsha, and therefore, if he says now you're marrying me, the zikas yivamin, it doesn't. There's no marriage at all. That's Rebbe's opinion. Marsa v'chalitza psula ena poteris doesn't ruin it entirely, and therefore there's still some zika. And the Rabbana would say that it's still a good marriage. Rashi says everybody agrees that chalitza psula would not pater her, and therefore it would be a good marriage. You brought this up before. Can you make a tnai, or you make a condition in a chalitza? I'm giving the chalitza. I'm going to ask that you give me $200. He tells her, right? I'll give you the chalitza. I'm going to give you $200. Marsa v'yesh tnai b'chalitza. You can make such a condition, anytime, because Rebbe says you can't make a condition like that. The chalitza is a good chalitza, therefore you can't marry her anymore. Whereas Rabbanan say if you didn't fulfill the condition, it's not a good chalitza, and therefore if he marries her subsequently, it would work. He says even another opinion. Everybody holds yesh lam, even though we paskin l'maisa ain't type of chalitza. These rabbis over here hold you can make such a tanai. Do you need a tanai kafel? If you do it this way, yes. If you don't do it this way, no. Like tanai b'nei gad b'nei rubei. One says you need a tanai kafel, and there's no tanai kafel, therefore it's not a good chalitza, and therefore the subsequent marriage that you do with the zikas yivamin does help. Rebbe says you don't need a kafel, therefore it's a good chalitza, therefore the subsequent marriage would not work. Why? Because you didn't marry her l'shem isha, says Rebbe, you married her l'shem yibum, and that doesn't work once the zika is gone. All right, I'll pick him here tomorrow, Mitzvah. Have a good day.
Does the woman have any rights at all in terms of refusing the thing?
Okay, so we said before, yes, the Reb, we learned from the Psukim that because it says right next to the parsha Yibamot, it says lo sachsam shor b'disho, don't muzzle the shore, right? So we learn from there that don't muzzle her either. For example, if let's say she is a young woman and the Yavam is 89 years old or something, then we listen to her and the rabbis tell him give her chalitza. Don't marry her. That's what she says. Or if let's say he's sick or whatever it was, that she does have the rights to speak up, and then the bezin would encourage him to do the right thing.